And now here's the next in our series of lessons on the book of Revelation. This one is called The Beast from the Sea, with 7 heads and 10 horns. It's lesson 17 of 26, and it's chapter 13 by me, Ellis Jones. The outline of the lesson: the beast that rises out of the sea, authority given to the beast by the dragon, one head fatally wounded but healed, power given to continue 42 months or 1260 years in prophetic terms, the lamb-like beast that arose from the earth that spoke with the voice of the dragon, his service to the beast from the sea, the number of the name of the lamb-like beast, 666. Lesson text. We'll meet this verse again. Revelation 13:8. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. We will read this verse again later in the lesson. Introduction. As the pagan Roman Empire, the dragon failed to destroy the church. Now he will create another beast that will carry on his evil work. It will be an image of the Roman Empire, a replica. It will come up in the Christianized Roman Empire, and from it will come a great apostate church. The beast is not that church, but the governments that will support it. An empire. It's an empire. See in the background there in Italy, the Italian boot. See that large green area? Those are several states owned by the Pope, or ruled by the Pope. It's called the Papal States. Primacy of the Bishop of Rome. The Bishop of Rome will be given primacy over the church, made head of the Roman Catholic Church by the Emperor Justinian. And I read somewhere in one of the commentaries it was in 338 AD. I couldn't find any independent evidence of this in the histories. After dissolution of the Western Empire in 476 AD, that was, remember, when the barbarians conquered it, it was the Pope who brought order out of chaos among the nations of Europe. This is Western Europe. The areas in green are states ruled directly by the Pope. I already told you that. In 1870, the Pope's temporal power ended, and he lost the Papal States. This is when Victor Emmanuel became King of Italy. According to Wikipedia, Pope Gregory III, or Second's defiance of the Byzantine Emperor Leo III, the Isaurian, as a result of the iconoclastic controversy in the Eastern Empire, prepared the way for a long series of revolts, schisms, and civil wars that eventually led to the establishment of the temporal power of the popes. Gregory was Pope 731 to 741 AD. It was sometime after his reign that the temporal power of the popes was established. And we have to find out what we mean by the temporal power of the popes. We'll find that out, I think, in the next slide or two. There we go, it's temporal power. Temporal power is a term used in medieval and early modern political philosophy to refer to worldly power, as contrasted with spiritual power. The temporal power, simply the state, polity, or secular authority, in contrast to the church or spiritual authority. There are several dates given for the period of the temporal power of the popes, but I am still unsure as to the beginning and ending dates of that period. I don't think it's all that important to know that. Here's the Frankish Holy Roman Empire of Charlemagne. He was anointed by the Pope, or crowned by the Pope. He was king of France. He was on Christmas Day 800. The Pope crowned him king. Actually, he was already king of France. The Pope crowned him Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire on Christmas Day in the year 800. After the fall of the Western Roman Empire, as a result of the barbarian conquest, the ruler of this church, the Pope, will create an empire called the Holy Roman Empire. This is organized to resemble, in many ways, the beast from the sea, the old Roman Empire. It is called the image of that beast. Actually, there were two images that we will see, a replica and an image. It will continue to persecute the true people of God well into the Reformation. The beast that arose from the earth, the false lamb, is the Pope, also called the false prophet. We will discover who he is by the number of his name, 666. Take another look at the Holy Roman Empire. All those in color, not the white, but all those in color, are part of the what's called the Holy Roman Empire, established by the Pope on Christmas Day in the year 800, under Charlemagne as first emperor. Here we have some of the horns on the beast. On one of the heads of the beast, Daniel saw was a little horn that came up among the 10 horns, and before whom 3 horns were plucked up by the roots. And we find that, read that in Daniel chapter 7. These supposedly were the Ostrogoths, Huns, and Heruli. I don't want to get into too much detail here except to say that the little horn represents the Pope as a civil ruler like the other horns, and that 3 kings had been removed from their kingdoms in order for the Pope to rule over their territories, which were called the Papal States. And this was given to the Pope by Pepin, King of France. I don't remember what year. Revelation 13, 1 and 2. And the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore. Then I saw a beast coming up out of the sea, having 10 horns and 7 heads, and on his horns were 10 diadems, and on his heads were blasphemous names. And the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His body was like a leopard, his feet were like those of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority. Now remember, the different parts of the beast came from the empires that preceded it. The Babylonian, the Persian, the Greek. Here we have another picture of the beast coming out of the sea with all of his heads. The beast that both Daniel and John saw was a symbolic representation of an empire that combined the attributes of the 3 great world empires that had preceded it. There's the bodies represented those empires, the body and the parts of his body. This composite beast then was a symbolic representation of the Roman Empire, which did combine all the properties of the empire that had preceded it: the Babylonian lion, the Persian bear, and the Macedonian leopard. The heads and horns were kingdoms and kings, including the Pope, the 11th horn, who ruled several states in Italy, large states. In fact, he ruled most of Italy as a king. Remember, that's what we call a temporal power. The dragon stood on the seashore. The dragon seemed to know what was coming, and some think it was he who called it forth. Daniel saw 4 great beasts come up from the sea, and was told there were 4 great empires that would rule the world, one after the other. The last beast he saw combined the characteristics of the first 3 beasts. It was the Roman Empire. And we call it the sea beast, the beast from the sea. John saw a sea beast like the one Daniel had seen. What Daniel saw as the 4th beast signified the Roman Empire in its complete history. But what John saw could not be the Roman Empire in its original form. The original had come up from the sea hundreds of years before. This beast is like the one Daniel saw, and the description is the same, So what John saw was the Roman Empire returning in a later form, but with most of the same characteristics as the original. What John saw had not come yet, so what was it? A revival of the Roman Empire? Could this beast that looked exactly like the beast Daniel saw and signified the Roman Empire, which had been around for hundreds of years, gone back into the sea and come out again? That's a possibility. Another possibility could be that another beast came out of the sea after the barbarian overthrow of the empire that looked like the original. If so, it would not be the Roman Empire, but an image of the original, a replica. Sea and land, or sea and earth, as symbols. As a symbol, sea, or water, sometimes called waters, mean people and multitudes, nations, and tongues, or languages. Revelation 17:15 tells what the waters mean. The empire came out of the restless commotions of humanity. Land or earth signifies established or settled conditions, such as a government already stable. Rome was called a city of 7 hills. I don't know if you see all the hills there, but the Palatine Hill was one of them. So the 7 heads, one place says the 7 heads represent 7 hills on which the city sits, but they also could mean other things. If 7 is a symbol meaning complete, which it does mean in many places, like the 7 churches, the 7 days of the week, the 7 heads might simply mean all the emperors of the Roman Empire. The head would be the top person, the head. John is told the heads represent kings. We know from Daniel that kings can mean kingdoms. The king signifies the kingdom. But there are clues that but here 7 can also mean 7, literal number. Revelation 17:9 and 10. There were 7 kingdoms, then another arose to make an 8th. The 7 were also said to be 7 mountains or hills on which the city sits. We'll meet that city in Revelation 17. So it shows the city as a great harlot or a prostitute riding on this beast. We're going to take a look at Rome again. There we go. Here we have another map. This is not Rome this time, is it? More about the heads. Another theory is that the heads might represent all the empires that have held Israel captive in Old Testament times and the church captive in New Testament times. If so, they were world powers that begin with Egypt. I have listed these world powers on the next slide. Now, this is a theory, what these heads might mean. The 7 heads plus 1. Dates relate to relation with Israel or the church. Egypt was from, we don't know for sure, right after Jacob, to 1447 BC. That's when Moses led Israel out of Egypt. Then Assyria, the Assyrian captivity under Sennacherib, 722 to 586 BC. And then the Babylonian captivity, the 10 northern kingdoms were taken captive to Assyria in 722. The southern kingdom, or Judah, kingdom of Judah, was taken captive in 606 by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and that lasted until 539 when the Persians took over. The Medo-Persians, 539 to 323 BC. Then the Macedonian Greek under Alexander the Great from 323 to 63 BC when the Romans came. Then the pagan Roman Empire from 63 BC to 311 AD, and that was when Constantine changed the empire from a pagan to a Christian. And then the Christianized Roman Empire from 311 to 476 AD when the barbarians conquered Roman Empire. And then the 8th one was the Holy Roman Empire. That would be the 8th head. And we'll find out about that in Revelation 17. From 800, Christmas Day 800, Charlemagne was anointed by the Pope, Emperor of the Holy Roman Empire, to 798, and that's when Napoleon came and stripped the Pope of his temporal authority. The papal throne. Blasphemous names. The rulers of all these empires claim divine titles, and most even claim to be gods or part gods. The Pope is no different. He allows himself to be called by names that should only belong to God or Jesus. And I have a supplemental article, and it's in print. And if you have that, you can read it, and you can find it online probably somewhere. Who does the Pope claim to be? He claims to speak for God and claims to have authority to change God's laws if he sees fit. A revival of the Roman Empire. If the fourth beast was the original beast that signified Rome as an empire, it would have come up from the sea hundreds of years before the fall of pagan Rome. So the meaning here might be that there's a revival of the Roman Empire, and that is what the dragon saw coming out of the sea. The Pope did create an image of the old Roman Empire that was called the Holy Roman Empire. Perhaps that was this beast. It retained many properties of the original. The dragon's authority. Now remember who the dragon is? Remember Satan. The dragon gave to the sea beast his power and great authority. See Matthew 4, 8, and 9. This is where Jesus is tempted, and the devil tells him that he has all these kingdoms under his thumb, under his control. The dragon, Satan, has only the authority God gives him. Whatever God gives him, he has. The lamb-like beast from the earth also has the dragon's authority, verses 11 and 12 of this 13th chapter. Here we have several symbols that have the same meaning. For instance, the 11th horn, the lamb-like beast, and the false prophet all mean all mean the Pope. The beastly empire supported him. The beast with its 7 heads and 10 horns was the empire that supported the Pope. But the lamb-like beast that came from the earth, that represents the Pope himself, the papacy. Revelation 13, 3-4. I saw one of his heads as if it had been slain, and his fatal wound was healed. And the whole earth was amazed and followed after the beast. They worshipped the dragon because he gave his authority to the beast, and they worshipped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who is able to wage war with him?" John sees what looked like a fatal wound on one of the beast's heads, but it looked as if it had been healed. It's as though the old Roman Empire had expired, then had been brought back to life. That's actually what happened. The empire overthrown by the barbarians had been revived. Out of that wreckage, the Pope created a new empire in the image of the original Roman Empire. It was as if he had brought it back to life. This became the Holy Roman Empire of Western Europe. The earth worshipped the dragon. As we pointed out in an earlier lesson, the earth, when used this way, means the world of unbelievers. People were amazed when they saw how the Pope had brought order out of the chaos that followed the barbarian invasions and the fall of Rome. When the people of the whole earth worshipped the beast, they were really worshiping the dragon, Satan, who had created the beast and given his authority to it. The dragon, the old serpent. I believe that the dragon symbolizes the political system that Satan creates on earth to destroy the true church of Christ. Remember, it's similar to the beast because it has 7 heads, 10 horns and has crowns on its horns. So I think it represents a political system created by the dragon, and whatever political system he creates is actually an image of him. Through the age, I believe the dragon symbolizes the political system that Satan creates on earth to destroy the true church of Christ. Through the ages, he has used political systems he created to kill the leaders of the church, and has tried in every generation to prevent the promised seed of the woman to live and accomplish his downfall. Remember, God promised that the seed of the woman would cause his downfall, would crush his head. He is still trying to destroy the church every way he can, even today. Here we see the 11th horn. We see 3 horns that had been plucked up. It looks like they were broken up. The Bible says they were plucked up by the roots, so that's not an exact representation. But the horn did have a mouth and spoke blasphemies. Revelation 13:5-6, there was given to him a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies, and authority to act for 42 months was given to him. Remember that 42 months was 1260 years of prophetic time. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, that is, those who dwell in heaven. So the tabernacle is the same as those who dwell in heaven. Remember, we said there was no tabernacle or temple in heaven. So this is a symbolic representation of Christians, the church and Christians. Tabernacle and those who dwell in heaven. He spoke blasphemies against the tabernacle and those who dwell in heaven simply means he blasphemed the church and Christians. There's actually no literal tabernacle or temple in heaven. Quote, I saw no temple in the city, for its temple is the Lord God the Almighty and the Lamb. End of quote. Revelation 21:22-23. These things are symbols. Christians are those who dwell in heaven. Hebrews 12 talks about on Mount Zion, and we come to an innumerable company of angels, the spirits of just men made perfect, and the firstborn who are enrolled in heaven. Ephesians 2:6 talks about he raised us up to sit with him in heavenly places, meaning Christ. Here we have a picture of the Pope and some of his cardinals, and sitting on his throne in Rome, of course. The mouth speaking arrogant words. Daniel saw the 11th horn that came up among the 10 and grew into an imposing size, having a mouth speaking arrogant words and blasphemies. Daniel 7:8-20. So Daniel and John have seen the same horn, the same beast, everything is basically the same. Paul describes this same person and calls him the man of sin and son of destruction or perdition. 2 Thessalonians 2:3-12. I understand this to mean the Pope of Rome. Here we have one of the martyrs, I don't know who that's supposed to represent, but one of the many martyrs that were put to death by orders of the Pope. Revelation 13:7-8. It was also given to him to make war with the saints and to overcome them, and authority over every tribe and people and tongue and nation was given to him. All who dwell on the earth will worship him, everyone whose name has not been written from the foundation of the world in the book of life of the Lamb who has been slain. See, the Pope is handing a sword to the king, the ruler, representing, giving him the power, the authority, and the responsibility to destroy the Pope's enemies. A persecuting power. This horn was given power to persecute the saints, to overcome them, and to rule over the whole Roman world. Of course, that's Western Europe at this time. All who dwell on the earth will worship him. Of those who are not written in the Lamb's Book of Life from the foundation of the world, that is. There's a distinction between those who dwell in heaven and those who dwell on the earth. One signifies Christians, the other signifies unbelievers or pretenders, people who claim to be Christians but are not. Is your name written down in the Lamb's Book of Life? I hope it is. It would be if you haven't had it removed. Only those whose names were written in the Lamb's Book of Life from the foundation of the earth will worship neither the beast nor the dragon. Understand this statement to mean that the names of the saved began to be written in it from the very beginning of the creation. I do not think it means that names of the saved were all written in the book at the beginning of the creation. It does not say at the foundation of the earth, but from the foundation of the earth. I have mentioned before that, and I'll say it again, the names of all innocents were written in this book as they were being conceived from the beginning of creation. All babies are born sinless and safe. The implication is that those who refuse to worship the beast or dragon have their names still in the book. They haven't been removed, or if removed, they have been written again, rewritten. The predestination of justice. Revelation 13:9 and 10. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone kills with the sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance and the faith of the saints. A time of testing. This period of persecution, the 1260 years of papal supremacy, will be a time of testing for the Christians. It will certainly require great courage and perseverance for the saints to endure the suffering and to remain faithful to God. You've heard the phrase, the premillennial talk about it a lot, the Great Tribulation. Well, this is the Great Tribulation. It's not some kind of 7 years or something like that that they talk about. This is a great persecution because it was a great tribulation, because of 1260 years of tribulation for the church. Here we have the beast that rose out of the earth with 2 horns. Looks like he has a dragon's tongue, but he's supposed to be the fake lamb. He pretends to be the Lamb of God. Revelation 13:11 through 12. He's actually a wolf in sheep's clothing. Then I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, but he spoke as a dragon. He exercises all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and he makes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast whose fatal wound was healed. Now this is the Pope making people submit to the government that supports him and does his will. Then I saw another beast. There's quotation, same quotation. The fake lamb. We know who the true lamb is. This man pretends to be him or to stand in his place. The 2 horns, if symbolic, probably mean that he is both temporal and spiritual ruler. Horns signify power and authority. The fake lamb speaks with the voice of the dragon. He has the pride of Satan and teaches and enforces error. We see the 3 beasts. All the beasts seen together. We see the dragon, the beast from the sea, and the beast that came up out of the earth. The dragon, the sea beast, and the land beast. The 3 beasts collude, and the land beast demands that the sea beast enforce his orders, and he also demands that everybody worship the sea beast. The Pope uses the temporal powers of the kings and kingdoms over which they held sway to enforce their orders and demands. They could do this because at the time the kings believed that only the popes could anoint and depose kings. Remember we talked about the king coming to Paris and anointing or crowning Charlemagne, Charles the Great, who was the king of France, as the emperor of the Holy Roman Empire. And of course, being crowned by the king, he felt the responsibility to obey the king, or to obey the Pope. He was anointed and crowned by the Pope. He felt the obligation to obey the Pope. Here we have Elijah on Mount Carmel calling down fire from heaven. Well, this beast has a similar power, but it's a fake power. It's a deceitful power, as Paul calls it in 2 Thessalonians 2. Revelation 13:13 through 15. He performs great signs, so that he even makes fire come down out of heaven to the earth in the presence of men. And he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which he was given, which it was given him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell on the earth to make an image to the beast who had the wound of the sword and had come back to life. Here we have the state and the church. One is the image of the other. And it was given to him, the land beast, to give breath to the image of the beast, the sea beast, so that the image of the beast would even speak and cause as many as to not worship the image of the beast to be killed. There are actually two images here. The Holy Roman Empire was a replica of the original Roman Empire, and the Roman Catholic Church was patterned on it also. The Pope would be the emperor, the cardinals would be the provincials, the consuls, and so forth. Here we see Moses before Pharaoh doing his snake trick. And remember, Pharaoh's wise men, magicians, they could do the same thing. But of course, Moses' snake ate up their snakes. So theirs were deceitful somehow or other. They were deceitful miracles. Moses was real. Deceitful signs. According to Paul in 2 Thessalonians 2:9 and 10, these signs were deceitful, lying wonders. The Catholic Church has always believed it could perform miracles. All its so-called saints have been certified miracle workers, certified by the Catholic Church, that is. Now recently, Father Sarah of California was canonized, became a saint when the Pope visited America, and they said he would only perform one miracle, one certified miracle. I don't know what it was, I never did find out. But they have to perform a miracle in order to be a saint. And the popes all claim to be able to perform signs and wonders. Fire coming down. I remember that the king sent soldiers to arrest Elijah, and he called down fire from heaven to burn him up. It happened twice. It is said this lamb-like person can bring fire down from heaven in the presence of men. What does this mean? Is it literal fire, and does it really come down out of heaven? If it is a real miracle, then this man would have to have the Holy Spirit working through him, but it's a deceitful miracle. I think this fire is figurative. It's a claim that God punishes whomever the Pope anathematizes. No Catholic would question it, but Paul says it's deceitful. Here we have Napoleon with the Pope. Convert or die. The popes demanded strict conformity throughout their domain. If anyone refused to acknowledge the Pope's authority, he could be killed, and thousands were. People should not be naive about the papacy and the Roman Catholic Church. If the temporal power had not been stripped from the Pope by Napoleon, this happened in 1798, the popes would still be ordering the deaths of all who would not conform. Revelation 13:16 through 18. And he causes all, the small and the great, and the rich and the poor, and the free men and slaves, to be given a mark on the right hand or on their forehead, and he provides that no one will be able to buy or sell except the one who has the mark, either the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. We're continuing to quote Revelation here. Here is wisdom. Let him who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for the number is that of a man. So it's the number of the name of a person, or an office really, and his number is 666. Here we have St. Peter's in Rome, sort of like the headquarters of the Pope. One must belong. Remember, they didn't have the mark on their forehead or their hand. They couldn't buy or sell or whatever. In order to have any kind of commerce or business transaction within this empire, one had to be a member in good standing of the Roman Catholic Church. It is hard for us moderns who live in democratic societies to imagine the despotism and tyranny of this evil empire. It had this power for 1260 years. Then it came to an end. The Pope will never regain his temporal power. The mark of the beast. The beast in this instance is a lamb-like land beast, the Pope. He is also referred to as the false prophet. His name has a number. The number identifies a man. The number is 666. This book was written in Greek. Greek letters were also their numerals, so each letter had both a phonetic and numeric value. It has been postulated that any combination of Greek letters that spell a single name can be tested. It is said to be a man's name. Here we see the book written in Latin. This is a missal written in Latin. We have the text on the left. We have a song on the right, used in the rituals. Only those single names that can add up to a total of 666 can qualify to identify the man in question. So we test his name, the letters of his name, to see if they add up. The best guess I can come up with is the Greek word, here spelled with English letters, Latinos, Latin man. Several other names have been put forward, but none I am aware of in Greek. Here we have the letters of the Greek alphabet, like alpha is 1, beta is 2, gamma is 3, and so forth. So each letter has a numeric value. We get to iota, that's 10. Then we have kappa, 20, so you'd have 10, and you'd have iota and alpha would be 11, right? Iota and beta would be 12. Iota and gamma would be 13, and so forth. That's the way it would go. Latinos is a Greek word, and it means Latin man. Spelled with Greek letters, the letters are lambda, 30, alpha, 1, tau, 300, epsilon, 5, iota, 10, nu, 50, omicron, 70, and sigma, 200. Add those all up, and you get 666. There came to be two Catholic churches, the Greek Catholic and the Roman Catholic. The Greek Catholic, also known as the Greek Orthodox Church, used the Greek language, and the Roman Catholic Church used the Latin language. Its rituals were called Latin rites. We'll take another look at those letters. If you can think of any letter, any name in Greek that would add up to 666, I welcome you to let me know about it. Here we have another book written in Latin. I think it's the Latin Vulgate. That was the Bible that the Roman Catholics used until recently. The Latin Vulgate translation by Jerome was the official version used exclusively in the Roman Catholic Church until recently. No unauthorized person could possess a private copy or translate the Bible or any part of it into any other language. The most important accomplishment in the Reformation was to get the Bible into the hands of the common people in their own languages. The first one to do that was Wycliffe in the 1300s. he and his helpers translated the whole Bible. Eventually, he started with the Gospels, and his assistants helped with the rest of the New Testament, and then they translated more of his assistants helped, and they translated the Old Testament. Questions for discussion. Who or what was signified by the beast from the sea? Use the pause button to take as much time to think and discuss it if you're discussing it with somebody. By whose authority did the 11th horn of the beast speak? Remember, it was given a mouth, and it spoke blasphemies, arrogant words. Who is represented by the false lamb? Remember, the beast that come out of the earth, it's also called the false prophet. Who is represented by that false lamb? He pretended to be the real lamb, the Lamb of God. What kind of signs could the land beast perform? And were they real miracles, or were they deceitful signs? What does the number of the beast mean? Remember, it's called the number of the name of a man. Catholic Church hierarchy. This is patterned on the old Roman Empire. We have God, and then we have the Pope, who would be the emperor. The cardinals would be the provincials, the consuls. The archbishops would be the lower ones, and so forth, all the way down to the common people, the laity. The hierarchy was based on the pattern of the old Roman hierarchy. Conclusion. As the ruler of the pagan Roman Empire, Satan would be unable to keep the church from growing. As a powerful persecuting force in the later forms of the empire, he still would not be able to wipe out the organization nor the individual members of the church. His best hope would be to create a despotic, theocratic, religio-political system that would persecute to the death all who rebelled and were faithful to Jesus. He's tried everything he could think of. Nothing so far has worked. Here we have the three beasts again, represented. This theocratic religio-political system depended upon a restoration of the Roman Empire as it existed before the barbarian invasion and the fall of Rome. The book of Revelation called it the beast from the sea. This was the political system. Then the popes created a theocracy with a hierarchy that was modeled on the empire. This became the Roman Catholic Church and was the image of the beast. All this depended on the power and prestige of the Pope, the false lamb. The real power behind all this was Satan, the old dragon. We will learn much more about these beasts in chapter 17. The beast from the sea, we'll see the great prostitute or harlot who's riding on it, who represents the city that rules over the kings of the earth. Rome, in other words. The identifying mark of the false lamb and his empire is the number 666. I believe this identifies him as the ruler of a church that used Latin as its language and rituals. Very few will speak plainly on this subject, fearing to step on toes or to be thought politically incorrect. But we need to tell the truth and call people out of this Babylonian captivity. Revelation 18:4 speaks of the fall of the new Babylon, Mystery Babylon the Great. The Beast from the Sea, a poem by me, Ellis Jones. A wolf in sheep's clothing, disguised as a lamb, arose in Rome and was Satan's great scam. His name in numbers is 666. To Latin man this number I fix. Teaching us doctrines, commandments of men, he's a great false prophet and man of sin. Ultimate Antichrist of all the ages, against all true saints in anger he rages. 1260 years he reigned, as vicar of Christ, or so he feigned, blasphemed our God with word and deed, performed false signs, this viper's breed. There's the triple crown that represents his authority, heaven, earth, and over the dead even in purgatory. With triple crown and shepherd's crook, proud of bearing with haughty look, he wears a fancy robe and dress, forgives men's sins if they confess. He claimed to have the ability to forgive men's sins, and that supposedly all the priests have that power also. He assumed the titles of Roman Caesars, ruled papal states by Pepin seizures. The king of France, Pepin, conquered some of the lands that were owned or run by the Huns, the Ostrogoths, and the Heruli, and gave them to the Pope, and they became his domain. He ruled them directly as king. Rode the sea beast as harlot woman, and revived the beast as Holy Roman. Supreme Pontiff was one of the titles of the Caesars, and he took that. I believe that's bridge builder. Pontiff means supreme bridge builder. The Pope became a secular ruler of several states, gifts of Pepin, king of France. Charlemagne was the seventh head. In 1870, that was dead. Temporal power was wrenched away and not restored down to this day. 1870 is when Victor Emmanuel became king of Italy and took away the papal states. Defeated by the mighty sword of the rider who's called Christ the Word, to the flames is he, this beast consigned, to hell his minions are assigned. Next, lesson 18 of 26. 4 visions, the 144,000 on Mount Zion, the angel with the gospel, doom for the worshippers of the beast, and the reapers, the 2 reapers. Revelation 14. The end. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.